You're welcome back. So we've been meaning to get to German football for quite a while. The German clubs obviously conspicuous by their absence in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, both knocked out by Premier League opposition, but a huge result in the Bundesliga last weekend. Bayern Munich moving to the top of the Bundesliga with a 5-0 win over Borussia Dortmund. German football commentator Rob Daly is on the line. Evening, Rob.
Evening.
So everything rosy in the garden for Bayern Munich until we hear of today's training session, which ends with Robert Lewandowski and Kingsley Coman smashing the heads off each other.
Yeah, that's what the German tabloids have been saying this afternoon, a clash between Lewandowski and Kingsley Coman in training. It wouldn't be the first time that Lewandowski's been accused of getting involved in a training ground occasion. Something similar reportedly happened with Mats Hummels, I think, at the back end of last season. Regardless at this stage, the extent to which how bad that fight was, it's just an unnecessary distraction for Bayern, because all in all, it's been a fantastic week for them after the 5-0 win over Borussia Dortmund at the weekend. And look, I'm sure they'll get over it. Apparently, Niko Kovac, after the altercation between Coman and Lewandowski, let them continue in the training session. That was what built the German tabloid is reporting. Sometimes these things happen. Maybe just because a journalist catches it in their eye, they think it's a big deal, but you never know. And
the PR drive afterwards is always interesting in that, I guess, in some ways it shows how passionate the players are for the club is quite often how you spin it. But it does seem like it was quite a serious fight. Like, they landed a couple of punches on each other.
Yeah, apparently so. I mean, there's been a bit of discontent linking around Lewandowski anyway, going back to last season, where it was reported he wanted to leave at the back end of the campaign because he wasn't happy with the transfer policy. The club hadn't spent more than £35 million on any player in their history, and he felt they were sort of lagging behind the big boys, in particular in the Premier League. They're doing that now. They are spending 50, 60, 70 million on players for next season. But it does seem like it was a bit of a nasty one, if the reports are true, between Coman and Lewandowski. Coman's a very young player, of course, only 22 years of age. But I'm sure that they'll work through it. Niko Kovac didn't seem to think it was a particularly big deal. I mean, we wonder what's going to happen with Lewandowski anyway at the end of the season. Are Bayern going to try and cash in while he still has his pretty good value? It remains to be seen.
Lee, his goal-scoring record in German football is unrivaled in recent times, but there's always been sort of question marks around his attitude, it seems. Didi Hamann was quite vocal ahead of the Champions League game against Liverpool in his criticism of Lewandowski, that he wasn't a team player, that he was too selfish, that it was all about him, and he was pretty quickly smacked down, I think, by most of the hierarchy around Bayern Munich. But what's your sense from covering German football of Lewandowski as a personality?
I think Lewandowski is a team player, absolutely. I mean, when the game's going on, I don't see anything other than a selfish, good striker streak in him. And look, he delivers 30, 40 goals a year. Apparently, Mats Hummels, who was with him at Dortmund, of course, wasn't happy with his attitude at the back end of last season. I think Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, part of the hierarchy at Bayern, also said, this kind of behaviour won't be tolerated. We need people who are fully committed to the cause. Ultimately, though, even with him in attack, they've fallen short in the Champions League, and that has been the real level they've been testing themselves at. They won the Champions League last when Lewandowski was playing them in the final in Dortmund colours. So I think he is a team player. Hamann got butchered for that comment on Lewandowski. I thought really unnecessarily. It was just his opinion. But yeah, I think there are mixed opinions about whether he's a team player in Germany for sure.
So this is his 5th season at Bayern Munich. He's consistently scored goals, and he's 30 now. So that decision in the summer as to whether Bayern sell and realise his value, he's been one of these players consistently linked with the biggest clubs in Europe, whether it was Real Madrid, Chelsea, Manchester City. At 30, has his chance gone for a move to one of those teams?
That is a good question. I mean, thinking out loud in the Premier League, who's Man United at Bayern, wouldn't they? I mean, look at a Champions League. I mean, he still is the top scorer in the Champions League right now, even though Bayern have been eliminated.
Knocked out,
I think there would be clubs in for him. The Premier League money is so silly at the moment. I think you could see him in a Manchester United shirt. Real Madrid was always the big one. I mean, when you score 4 goals against a team in a Champions League semi-final in one game, you're going to be linked with them to the bitter end. And Lewandowski was linked with Real Madrid. But I don't know if that ship has sailed, whether they'll be turning their attention to Neymar or Mbappe or someone a bit younger than that.
So a bit of a sour end to what on the pitch was a stunning week for Bayern Munich with that 5-0 win over Borussia Dortmund, 4-0 up at half-time, just an absolute blitzkrieg in the first 40 minutes or so. Like, it was sensational football, the likes of which we haven't really seen from Bayern so far this season. And of course, it was Borussia Dortmund's former players who did most of the damage. A couple of goals from Lewandowski, one from Mats Hummels. That sort of result, is everyone a bit shell-shocked by just how good Bayern Munich were?
I think Dortmund... Dortmund got beat at Bayern, I want to say last season maybe, or maybe the season before, like 6-0. I think it was last season, something like 6-0. And that was really embarrassing, for obvious reasons. This feels worse, because it was all about these two teams are like neck and neck in the title race. They're the same calibre now. Dortmund... these vibrant young players, but Bayern still have all that wisdom of Müller and Hummels and Lewandowski and the like, and they just got completely done. I mean, Dortmund did have a chance early in the game, Mahmoud Dahoud hitting the post inside the opening 9 minutes. If he scores that, maybe the game's different. But it was a complete collapse, a complete first-half collapse from Dortmund. They gifted goals to Bayern. Dan Axel Zagadou at centre-back had an absolute nightmare. The poor guy gifted Lewandowski his... a 200th goal in the Bundesliga for Bayern, which he took brilliantly. He scored 2 in the end, Lewandowski. And it was just, you heard the comments from Marco Reus and everyone after. They were shocked. They'd been stunned by what happened at the Allianz.
There's still 6 games to go, so it's not done. They are only a point behind Bayern Munich, and they're back in action at home against Mainz on Saturday. So maybe you win that game, and you put this in the rearview mirror, and they hope that Bayern slip up. But would you have Bayern, even though it is just a single point? Do you think that the mental damage inflicted might be just too much for Dortmund to come back from?
Yeah, I do wonder. I mean, look, Bayern, neither of these teams are in Europe anymore. Bayern do have a cup semi-final coming up against Werder Bremen, but basically it's matches every 7 days. So they'll be fresh as daisies, these two. Looking at the run-in, I'll just read the fixtures out very quickly. So Dortmund have Mainz, Freiburg, a home game with Schalke, their big rivals who have been awful this season. Bremen, Fortuna Düsseldorf, really good run, but then they're away at Borussia Mönchengladbach on the final day. Really tough match. Bayern have got a relatively calm run in, apart from the fact in their last 2, they go to Leipzig, who we've seen in the Champions League, of course, in recent times, and then they host Frankfurt, who are in the quarterfinals of the Europa League, been fantastic this season. So it's really close. I'd probably just say from a experience, psychological level, Bayern are just going to be absolute animals and just get it done. The problem was for me a little bit of Dortmund. I always said Dortmund would win it if Marco Reus didn't get injured at any point in the season, and he did, and he's so important for them more than any other player, even more than Jadon Sancho has been fantastic this season.
So Jadon Sancho's obviously been strongly linked with a move back to England. A player who left England to go back to Germany is Serge Gnabry, who I'm sure some people remember played a few games for Arsenal. At one stage looked as though he might be able to establish himself in the first team. Never really happened. And then moved back to Germany at Werder Bremen. He's still very, very young, Serge Gnabry. He's only 23. Is there a surprise how well he's done this season at Bayern Munich?
I think some fans were a bit disappointed he didn't come into the team sooner. I'm surprised he's so important already for Bayern, because he went back to Germany. He had a year at Werder Bremen. Bayern signed him, loaned him out to Hoffenheim so he could get another year. So he's almost been a Bayern player for 2 years prior to getting a kick. But he has been fantastic. I mean, thinking back to, I think it was the Olympics in 2016. That was Rio, wasn't it? Rio?
Yeah. They won the silver medal.
Brilliant. That's right. And he was fantastic at that tournament. Second top scorer or something like that. And then I think his agent came out, someone came out and said, all 18 Bundesliga teams are trying to sign him. So everyone knew he was a top quality player. It's weird it didn't happen for him in England. He had his injuries, struggled at West Brom, but he was very young. He is undoubtedly a Champions League top level player. I think if I think back to the Liverpool game at Anfield, for me, Serge Gnabry was Bayern's best player by a long way in that 0-0 draw. He was, every time he got the ball, you were like, wow, he's going to do something. He's going to be the guy to do something. So, and they need wingers. You know, Nathan, they need wingers because Ribery and Robben are leaving at the end of the season. So they need Gnabry, they need Coman and Alphonso Davies, who they got from MLS, to really step up ahead of next season.
Where are Ribery and Robben expected to go to?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they've hinted at... I think Robben says he's going to continue playing. I'm not sure about Ribery.
Right.
It's a tough one. I mean, maybe they're still brilliant. I mean, their legs just can't do absolute top level week in, week out football. And they are a bit injury prone. So if you're willing to take a gamble on a 20 game a season guy who might win you 5 matches, you know, they're your guys, Ribery and Robben.
You mentioned Jadon Sancho. What's the latest? So he's very much, it seems, part of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's transfer targets for the summer. If United go in with a bid of 100 million, I guess that's irresistible for Dortmund.
I don't know. I think they'll sit that out, actually, Nathan. I think they would. I think they'd go, look, everyone knows he's brilliant, and he is brilliant. He is like Hazard or Messi when he's running with the ball, and what is so brilliant about him. And it's the difference between, you know, when we all got excited about Aaron Lennon coming through and maybe even Walcott and all these wingers for England that were coming through at 19, 20, and you're thinking, wow, look at them, look at their pace. The end product wasn't there. That final ball, even into their mid-20s, was lacking. Sancho plays it perfectly. I mean, his cutbacks, the weight of the pass, his understanding of the movement of Marco Reus and the players around him is brilliant. I think Dortmund, if I'm Sancho, for starters, I'm staying. Play a full season, play every game for Dortmund, definitely go to the Euros with England. If you're Dortmund, I think you think, well, he's going to have another brilliant year. We're going to be back in the Champions League, and he'll have a Euros. He'll probably start for England at the Euros. We'll get 150 for him in 12 months.
What sort of treatment does he get from defenders over there? You think of some of the players in the Premier League, some of the tricky wingers, probably Wilfried Zaha, I know is considerably older at this stage, who gets kicked up and down the pitch. Like, are they well protected?
Yeah, I don't think Sancho gets too much of a rough time. He's actually almost too good to kick over. I mean, he's so fast and nimble, and you actually at times don't understand how he's got around someone. A low centre of gravity where he can shift the weight of his body and glide through players. It's really brilliant. So, you know, he hasn't made any noises about that. Zaha does get really... I know Zaha complains about it. I think he does get really bad treatment in the Premier League from defenders, and they know he gets agitated about it. But Sancho sort of springs up, you know, a bit like Eden Hazard does, just bounces back up and gets on with it. So, what a player he's been, one of the players of the season in Germany for sure. Just
before we let you go, you were at the new White Hart Lane during the week for Spurs' win against Manchester City. Firstly, were you as blown away as everybody else by the stadium?
Yeah, it is incredible. I mean, it does feel, it's weird to say, but it does feel a bit like White Hart Lane. Maybe it's just because you walk up the high road. I mean, you know all this, mate. You walk up the high road and you got the smells of like stinking pubs and onions and everything like that. And then you go in and it's just this, it doesn't, because there's all these stalls and beer things and a microbrewery, all this stuff I'm loving, by the way. Can't have it pretty
You're not working.
Full time, I'm done. And it's just lovely in there. And it doesn't feel, everything's reasonably priced. It's not naff and inside. It's all just really classily done. The concrete of the stadium is made from the old White Hart Lane that they've recycled and used on the concourse. It's just clever stuff like this. And then the noise in there is insane. The noise, I don't know what they've done. I mean, the Spurs fans are obviously up for it at the moment. First 2 games we were at Palace and we had City Champions League quarter-final. They're going to make some noise. But they've done something to the shape of that bowl where... I don't know, are you doing a commentary there soon?
I don't know. I was just looking at the fixtures. I don't think, unless I get there final day of the season, which I'm a bit annoyed about, because you want to get there, it looks spectacular. Yeah,
you can't hear yourself through your headphones, so get the noise cancelling ones going.
Okay,
but
right,
it's a real treat. I mean, they have built an absolute spaceship in the middle of Tottenham. I don't know how on earth they did it.
I do always love your little studio for anyone who's watching on our social channels, and with the little organ in the background. It sort of feels like the second you switch off with us that you maybe start some sort of... You've got your own YouTube channel of maybe bad Ed Sheeran covers, like slowed right down to be even more romantic.
No, mate, I'm rubbish at that. I've got a guitar here, which I'm alright, but the keyboard, oh my god, absolutely abysmal.
I think the challenge for the next time you're on, Rob, should be to get your own theme tune. So you could, as you come on, we'd go to you and you can play your own theme tune. So Pat Nevin is his own theme tune, and every time we come to you, you could have invented your own piece of music.
I know,
so something
but you'll
that you
have to
feel
be on
is
the
appropriate.
You'll have to be on the show because it'll be weird if you're not hosting. I just start playing a song about myself.
Well, listen, I think it could work.
I will say Pat's got the best off the ball setup, hasn't he? That sort of fire going in the background and a whiskey.
Yeah, I
love what he's doing.
That's the dream right there for everybody. That's where you're heading, though, Rob. Don't you worry about it. Great stuff as always.
One day. Cheers.
Talk to you soon.